Hello. So for those of you who know me, my background is in digital technology, specifically based in Silicon Valley, and I've been one speaking out for quite a while, uh, just letting people know, hey, cool does not necessarily mean it's optimal for us as a human race. And I don't mean we should turn away from everything, but we've got to be aware of what we're stepping into. So about 23 hours ago, this article posted in Extreme Tech, and it's the title. Let's just pull this down a little bit. Let's see here. Darpa taps Blue Origin for nuclear powered rocket. So there's quite a bit of information there that will be familiar to you, but we're just going to step it apart. So what we're going to do in this news story is we're going to go over what DARPA is. We're going to talk about who owns Blue Origin as a reminder, because we are aware of that. We're going to talk how DARPA relates to Facebook. We're going to talk about how this artificial intelligence realm is guarding our borders, how the master slave and fight over offensive terms in computing pervasives into your life. And we're also going to talk about what happens when you're fired by a robot. So let's go ahead and dig in. This is meant to set up to be a three-part series. I don't want to dig in too deep on any of these, but a great overview to step into this. So again, this was released about 23 hours ago. Actually, now it's showing a little bit, well, it's a different time zone. So Ryan Whitwam on April 14th posted a DARPA taps Blue Origin for nuclear powered rocket. Okay, just off the cuff, who owns Blue Origin? That's correct, Jeff Bezos. Now, how is it that Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, private individuals who may have had dreams of in childhood of launching rockets off to space, being able to touch the moon, how did private citizens get the right to launch rockets into space? Now, take a look at this sentence again. DARPA, which we're going to dig into more, is an intelligence arm of the military who specifically works with human citizens in order to develop technology. And in this case, Blue Origin, a private company run by a private individual, is going to nuclearize the rocket. Any hands up here? Okay, so let's take a look at this. So we've got a private individual. Now, why is it that the government pushes off secret programs onto private companies? It's very, very simple. One is private companies are often more resourceful, inventful. They can go a lot farther with a project. They're motivated in order to get to the next step, the race of other people. The government's kind of a slow turning ship that just doesn't move very fast. So that's one reason that we might often hear. We also might hear about cost saving measures. You line up a couple of different companies, you throw some money at them, you set up a competition, they carry the weight of the research and development instead of the government. Okay, but the government's often funding this as well. And we're going to see a specific example of a DARPA race where that was encouraged and the result of that. But I would argue time and again that the number one reason why the government taps private companies is for secrecy, because FOIAs can reach into the depths of the government. FOIAs do not work on corporations. If a company is secretly developing, it's corporate secrets. There's NDAs, you don't have a right to know that. So it's a very quick and simple way in order to delve deep and keep it secret. And in the world of private companies, threats and blackmail go deep. And as we've seen, people disappear. And yet it's so unbelievable that it's just dismissed as missing person cases, or often the S word for the demise of the person. But it happens more often than not. And I can point to almost every company in Silicon Valley a specific example of their CEO and or main executive board where this has occurred too. But let's continue down this path. So now we have an intelligence arm of our military, US military, using a private company run by Jeff Bezos, who is always one of the top 2 or 3 wealthiest people on the planet, runs a trillion, if not multi-trillion-dollar company, and they're going to allow him and support him and pay for R&D for nuclear powered rockets. So let's dig into this. Blue Origin, a private space flight firm founded by Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos, is still trying to get his new Shepard rocket ready for commercial launches, but it has accepted a contract to design something new. The contracts from the Pentagon Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, direct Blue Origin, as well as Lockheed Martin and General Atomics, to design a nuclear thermal propulsion system that could accelerate human spaceflight, literally. So check out some of these other names we've got here in this partnership: Lockheed Martin and General Atomics. This has been going on for decades. Really started to come out in the 40s with the incident that occurred in New Mexico. There's been a lot more information around what is ours, what is not ours, and theories around how far we're actually at. So here's this Extreme Tech article if you want to dig back into that. I wanted to take a few steps back here. I had a couple of articles here. Now this is really interesting because when I typed in DARPA taps Blue Origin, and you see I spelled it wrong here, DARPA taps Blue Origin, Lockheed for Draco Craft Designs. Now, isn't that interesting? This article doesn't go into the name here, but names and symbols we have learned are very, very important. So there you go. Okay, so as we go forward, and they're looking for a Q4 of 2022 launch on this. So that's really fast for government development funding, R&D, and launch. But as we see, timelines are moving really fast right now. Okay, DARPA. DARPA is an agency of the U.S. Department of Defense responsible for the development of new technologies. How do they develop new technologies? How do they receive their funding? And what is the budget oversight? Are some core questions that might have popped up in your head. But most people just want to know, oh, cool, what's DARPA? I want to work there. Well, let's dig into this. So DARPA, if we just click on Wikipedia, which we've got an overview. Oh, here, it took me right to DARPA Mill. Creating breakthrough technologies and capabilities, of course, for national security purposes. So it is a really interesting site if you want to spend some time here digging through their communities and overview of what it is. But you gotta go into this with your eyes wide open. In fact, right here is a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. So anytime you hear anybody referring to FOIA, it's a requirement that if somebody requests information, it might be provided to them. Now, I have requested FOIAs on a number of occasions, 2 core occasions where I specifically requested information about myself over a specific incident that occurred, that I had the documentation in hand and evidence, and required the federal government to step forward with the truth. And in both documents, everything was blacked out. You couldn't even tell in the document that I wanted that was related to the incident that occurred. There was no facts in it. And of course, although they're supposed to waive the fees, for the 3rd document I requested, they wanted to provide over $7,000 or charge me over $7,000 worth of fees for this document that all they had to do was do a query in a computer that they had handy that I had stood in front of and run myself, push the button, and the electronic file would be sent via spreadsheet. And they wanted over $7,000 for the research and time and materials of doing that. So here we are, DARPA. Again, the site's very interesting. It is government propaganda. So as we move forward, I want to talk a little bit about DARPA and how it affects our life. So we all know about autonomous vehicles. Now, autonomous vehicles are really predominant. In fact, from my experience working with autonomous vehicles at top companies, they were ready to launch and truly better than most vehicles on the road by December of 2018. So here we are in April 2021. We know that autonomous vehicles are running through villages and kind of closed circuit environments, but it's truly an amazing technology. My cautionary point is there's no way for a private individual to ride in an autonomous vehicle and have any level of being anonymous, and certainly no privacy. Everything inside the car and outside the car has what's called eyes and ears, audio and video recording. And you cannot get in the car unless you have some way to pay for the car, or an NDA where you've provided your ID and gotten signatures that way. So one way or another, they have your contact information. But as we know through the networks, and specifically releases from LexisNexis, having one point of contact with you means they know about your entire family, your entire extended family, your next door neighbor, how much your next door neighbor makes, how many times they've traveled outside the United States, how many times they go to the grocery store, how many kids they have. One of their kids may be in the university in another state. They know every roommate. This web is vast of all the details that they've gathered. So the more we present ourselves into these situations, we're not only selling out our own information, we're selling out those around us. Now, I'm speaking of an individuals who chose to be a passenger. What if you wanted to walk down the street on the day that an autonomous vehicle drove by? Again, you didn't sign up for it. You didn't participate in it. You may not have physically even been affected. Let's say the car didn't even hop up on the sidewalk next to you, which and now that one of the core computer companies has removed themselves, that's not occurring. That's not a joke. We did see their accident a few years ago. But just by the fact that you were captured on film, they have now scanned every data point they can. And as machine learning grows, they recirculate the same maps, gather data points, paint them together, and now they know your routines. They know where you're at, where you go, who your friends are, movements, everything is pieced together as part of this. This isn't just a big brother concept. It goes much beyond 1984. So let's look at what I have pulled up here, DARPA Grand Challenge. Now, what was the Grand Challenge? DARPA came up with this great idea. It's a prize competition of American autonomous vehicles funded by Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the most prominent research organization of the U.S. Defense Department. Congress has authorized DARPA to award cash prizes to further DARPA's mission to sponsor revolutionary high payoff research that bridges the gap between fundamental discoveries and military use. The initial DARPA Grand Challenge was created to spur the development of technologies needed to create the first fully autonomous ground vehicles, capable of completing a substantial off-road course within a limited time. Now, I'm not going to continue to go much further than this. This is a very interesting process if you want to know in the history and the background. But essentially what happened is you had a number of core teams, primarily out of universities or funded by corporations through universities. And by the third run, we had a winner of Stanford. Their car was named Stanley. And in fact, Stanley is housed in the Foster City location of the VW R&D center right now for electric vehicles and autonomous driving. If you wanted to get access to that, I don't know that I had an NDA to get in there. I don't know how public that is. But what we've seen is the government wanted to fool this, and by pulling together all these companies and researchers and hey, university students, more money was spent on the R&D to fail the first time and the second time than was even awarded in the prize. I don't have the numbers right here, but let's say the prize amount was $1 million. Here we go. We've got Urban Challenge, 2 million, 1,500,000 respectively. But it's estimated that the input and R&D was at the low end over $13 million in order to come up with this process. Now, out of this, core companies were able to buy rights and move forward and keep developing, but the military continued down this path also of autonomous vehicles. Some of the core organizations involved are listed here. Again, if you're into autonomous vehicles or artificial intelligence or machine learning, the study of this DARPA challenge is very, very interesting. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've talked about DARPA taps Blue Origin for a nuclear-powered rocket. We've talked about what DARPA is. We've talked about where Blue Origin comes from, and we've talked about, of course, the concern here. We've also talked a little bit more about how DARPA leverages what is taxpayer money in order to fund corporations, and how this will play forward. What we're going to do in the next, as we move forward, is we're going to talk about Facebook and DARPA. All right, I will talk to you on the next episode.